From a distance, Ceres looks harmless, a small gray sphere drifting through the debris field between Mars and Jupiter. No storms, no oceans, no rings, just a dim body lost among broken rock and weak sunlight. So quiet that for 2 centuries it felt less like a world and more like a clerical error in an old star catalog. That is the first deception. Ceres was once called a planet. Giuseppe Piazzi found it in 1801, a moving point of light exactly where astronomers had predicted a missing world should be. For a time, that is what it was, a planet, a real one. It entered the maps and the textbooks and took its place between Mars and Jupiter as though it had always belonged there. Then the sky filled. Pallas appeared, Juno, Vesta, then dozens more. The image of a single planet dissolved into a belt of debris, and Ceres was stripped of its title, not because it changed, but because the neighborhood changed around it. A century before Pluto, Ceres became the solar system's first great demotion. In 2006, history folded back on itself. The same reclassification that removed Pluto created the category of dwarf planet, and Ceres was simultaneously promoted from asteroid and denied re-entry into the old family. Large enough to be round, ancient enough to matter, not allowed back. That should have been the end of its story. Another dead name, another forgotten object beyond the edge of public interest. Instead, Ceres waited. It waited at 2.8 astronomical units from the Sun, circling in the dark among the shattered leftovers of planetary formation. Only about 940 kilometers across, a quarter of the Moon's diameter, but holding roughly a third of the asteroid belt's total mass. This is not rubble. This is the dominant body of the belt, a gravitational survivor from the birth of the solar system, a protoplanet that never grew large enough to join the inner worlds and never died small enough to become just another rock. And inside that survivor, there is water. Not rivers, not rain, not seas under cloud, but water locked into ice, salts, minerals, clays, brines, and buried reservoirs. Possibly more fresh water in total than exists on the entire surface of Earth. That single fact overturns everything the word underscore underscore quote underscore zero underscore underscore implies. Ceres is not dry wreckage. It is a water-rich world marooned in the inner solar system, sitting at the boundary between the rocky planets and the icy domains farther out, belonging fully to neither. For most of human history, none of this was visible. Through telescopes, Ceres remained a pale mathematical certainty, a world without a face. Then, in March 2015, NASA's Dawn spacecraft arrived, the first mission ever to orbit a dwarf planet, and Ceres began to dismantle our assumptions one by one. As Dawn descended toward orbit, one feature seized all attention. Strange, brilliant patches shining from within a crater called Akator, white against charcoal gray. Sharp, reflective, almost artificial looking, like signals left inside a wound. The rest of Ceres appeared ancient, battered, exhausted by time. But those spots looked young. They looked recent, as if something beneath the surface had reached upward and left a message that no one was supposed to read. The bright regions turned out to be salt deposits, primarily sodium carbonate, left behind after briny liquid rose from below and the water component escaped into vacuum. The brightest markings on Ceres are not frost, not decorative dust. They are the dried residue of hidden water, the crusted memory of brine. Think about what that requires. On a world exposed to vacuum, where the surface temperature is brutally low and nothing protects the ground from space, material from the interior found a path upward. Not once, repeatedly. The fractures in Akator acted like opened veins, and through them, the dwarf planet bled salt. And the deeper Dawn looked, the less dead Ceres became. Beneath the surface, scientists found evidence of brine reservoirs, not a warm global ocean in the science fiction sense, but something in some ways more disturbing. A world that froze and did not freeze cleanly. A world that kept pockets of chemical activity alive in the dark, long after its bulk should have gone solid and still. The ancient internal ocean, if it once existed globally, did not vanish into a clean block of ice. It left behind concentrated brine, muddy layers, chemically altered rock, deformable zones. The corpse of an ocean, still twitching. Researchers now describe Ceres as an evolved ocean world, a phrase that sounds almost gentle until you realize what it means. This is not a world with water. This is a world that lost its water and has not finished losing it. Then came the water in the sky. Before dawn arrived, the Herschel Space Observatory had already detected water vapor escaping from Ceres. Not continuously, not like a real atmosphere, but intermittently. A transient exosphere, a faint halo of molecules slipping into space, appearing and vanishing in response to solar activity, as energetic particles strike near-surface ice and free water molecules that drift upward for hours or days before dissipating. So yes, in the thinnest, most ghostly way, Ceres has an atmosphere. Not one a human could see, not one that could carry sound or scatter light. A temporary skin of escape, a breath that the world does not have the strength to hold. It exhales. And then dawn found Ahuna Mons. If Akator was the first shock, this was the second. A solitary mountain rising roughly 4 to 5 kilometers above the surrounding terrain, steep-sided, sharp-sloped, conspicuously young-looking against the battered landscape around it. It does not belong to a range. It does not sit inside a crater. It stands alone, isolated, angular, almost inserted, as though placed there by an event Ceres should no longer be capable of. The leading explanation is cryovolcanism, not fire, not lava, an eruption of cold brine, slush, salts, and frozen mud, pushing upward from below and piling into a dome. On Earth, volcanism is heat escaping. On Ceres, it may be pressure that has nowhere else to go. That makes Ahuna Mons one of the most disquieting mountains in the solar system, not because it is tall, but because it is recent. A small, frozen, isolated dwarf planet retained enough internal complexity to build a fresh mountain long after it should have gone quiet. And if cryovolcanism built this one, where are the others? Some researchers believe older cryovolcanoes may have slowly relaxed and sagged until they became unrecognizable, which means Ceres may have been reshaping itself for far longer than its surface admits. This is the pattern Dawn uncovered again and again. Ceres is not a dead world. It is a world of delayed death. Its craters look ancient. Its salts say otherwise. Its surface looks frozen solid. Its mountain says pressure. Its atmosphere appears, disappears, and appears again. A pulse so faint it barely registers, but too persistent to be nothing. Every layer of data pushes the same conclusion. This body has not yet finished the long, slow process of shutting down. It is still in transit between what it was and what it will eventually become. And that transit is measured not in years, but in epochs. And here is where the beauty turns. Because Ceres is beautiful in processed images, muted grays, pale scars, soft curves. Compared to the violence of Jupiter or the furnace of Venus, it looks calm, gentle almost. But that calm is the calm of something deeply frozen after internal trauma. The bright spots of Akator are not jewels, they are evaporite wounds. The mountain is not a monument, it is the stiffened expression of buried force. The exosphere is not weather, it is loss. For a human standing on Ceres, there would be no comfort anywhere. The sky black at noon, the sun casting a thin, hard light over cold minerals and ancient impacts. No breathable air, No liquid water on the surface. No pressure. No warmth. Gravity low enough to make weight feel provisional, but not so low that anything becomes easy. Silence so total it would feel mechanical. Every exposed system fighting vacuum, temperature extremes, and abrasive dust. Ceres would not welcome a visitor. It would have to be engineered into tolerating one. And yet, this is precisely what makes Ceres impossible to dismiss. In any future where humans operate beyond Earth for extended periods, water is not scenery. It is fuel, oxygen, radiation shielding, chemistry, survival. A dwarf planet in the asteroid belt, loaded with water-bearing material, salts, organics, and the chemical residue of an ancient ocean, sitting between the inner planets and the outer system, that is not just a scientific curiosity. That is a resource deposit at a crossroads. Not paradise, not home. Something colder than either. A depot, a laboratory, a waypoint carved into the dark by the logic of necessity. The kind of place no one dreams of living on, and no expanding civilization can afford to ignore. Perhaps that is the strangest inheritance of Ceres' long demotion. We spent 2 centuries treating it as a downgrade, planet to asteroid, asteroid to dwarf planet, as though classification were the same thing as importance. But Ceres never responded to our labels. It kept its buried ice, it kept its salts, it kept its impossible mountain. It kept exhaling faint water into space while our categories argued overhead. Planet, asteroid, dwarf planet. None of those words changed the brine in Akator, the vapor escaping into vacuum, or the possibility that somewhere beneath the crust, reservoirs of ancient liquid persist in the cold. Ceres and Pluto share the same quiet lesson. Both were reduced on paper and enlarged by discovery. Both turned out to be more active, more complicated, more unsettling than any list of planets ever suggested. Demotion did not diminish them. It only revealed how crude our first map of the solar system really was. So Ceres remains where it has always been, a rounded survivor in the rubble, a relic of planetary formation that never finished becoming what it might have been. Too large to ignore, too small to dominate, too wet to dismiss as stone, too cold to call alive. A world that looks dead enough to overlook, and active enough to keep betraying itself. Where brightness means buried brine, where a mountain may be frozen eruption, where even the faintest atmosphere is only molecules slipping away into the void, one breath at a time. Somewhere inside that contradiction is the reason Ceres does not leave the mind. It reminds us that the solar system is not divided cleanly between living worlds and dead rocks. There are intermediate states, failed planets, frozen archives, chemical ghosts, bodies that have not been truly active for billions of years and still refuse to become fully still. Ceres is one of them, drifting between Mars and Jupiter like a discarded draft of a planet, carrying within it water, salt, memory, and the slow aftershocks of an interior that never completely shut down. Not a paradise, not a ruin, not yet one, not quite the other. A world suspended in the act of dying, so slowly that the process looks like patience. And from 500 million kilometers away, in the cold belt of broken beginnings, it keeps circling the sun without ceremony. A demoted planet with a ghost atmosphere and a cryovolcanic mountain rising above wounds made of salt, waiting with the particular stillness of things that are not finished.